1825, the Trail of Tears. The tribe of Cherokee forcibly removed from their lands. 1834, the permanent Indian frontier was established. As long as the stars shall shine and the rivers shall flow.
It was the eastern edge of the plains, and it was established by the US government in 1832. More contact was increased in the 1840s, and finally the frontier was abandoned.
1840s, the first settlers crossed the plains to Oregon and California, invading the Indians' land. 1848, the US gained a large area of the land in the west from Mexico. 1851, the first Treaty of Laramie.
It defined the Indian homelands and promised the Indians that settlers wouldn't enter these lands. It gave the Indians food, clothing, cattle and equipment for 10 years as compensation for loss of land, and it was important because the Indians became reliant on the government.
1859, gold was discovered in Colorado. Furtherly, 1861, the Fort Wise Treaty.
Sand Creek Reservation in Colorado for Cheyenne tribe, poor quality land. It was important because they broke the previous treaties, promised good land but they didn't receive it, and the white Americans said no one would cross the land, but in the same year they opened it to the white settlers and continuously broke the treaty.
1862, Little Crow's War.
Little Crow's War was a revolt against reservations. His people had begun to give up of their homeland and gave in to move to the reservation in Minnesota. Life was very hard for them. In 1861 their crops were failing and the promised compensation allowance never came. Around 12,000 people were to face starvation. Little Crow was very angry because he'd done his best to keep the treaty, but was made to look a fool in front of his tribe. In 1862 the tribe attacked white traders and those living in the agency. 20 men were killed and mothers and children were captured. Attacks continued for 3 months, so soldiers rounded up the Indians. 38 was hanged and Little Crow was shot. 1 year on, 2,000 of Little Crow's people moved to a smaller reservation, but many died in the winter.
1864, the Sand Creek Massacre, also known as the Chivington Massacre. November 29th, 700 men from the military killed an estimate of 70 to 163 Indians, 2/3 of whom were men and women and children. Indian chiefs attempted to raise the American flag and the white flag of peace. This was ignored by the military. Evidence points towards a massacre. Bodies were mutilated. Prisoners that were taken were shown to white American theatre audiences. 1865, Red Cloud's War.
An armed conflict between Lakota, Cheyenne and Arapaho and the US over control of the Powder River country. Because of the Bozeman Trail, gold miners intruded on Red Cloud's land. He often attacked them. Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull joined Red Cloud's attack of Colonel Carrington's line of forts along the trail. Captain Fetterman left to protect woodcutters building the fort. They were lured into ambush by Sioux. Fetterman and 100 soldiers were killed.
1868, Fort Laramie Treaty, the second small reservations.
This redefined the territory of the Sioux Nation. Red Cloud enjoyed the victory at Red Cloud's War until he eventually had to agree to the treaty. Not all of the Sioux were happy with this decision because they were nomadic and did not like being confined to one area. This caused problems in the future and was the reason for more conflict.
1876, the Great Sioux War and the Battle of Little Bighorn.
General Custer and 550 men charged up to Little Bighorn to kill the Indians. Scouts told Custer that they were outnumbered 3-1 and didn't have enough ammunition to kill all the Indians, but Custer did not listen and charged to the Indians. He was forced onto the bluffs due to quicksand, and here he was easily spotted and the Indians attacked them with a pincer tactic. In a desperate last stand to save his soldiers, Custer ordered his men to shoot their horses and use them as barricades. This did not help, and Custer and all of his 260 men were slaughtered. This was regarded as the greatest Sioux victory, but led to the demise of the Plains Indians by the US government seeking revengeance.
1877, the last 3 Sioux under Crazy Horse surrendered. 1883, the northern buffalo herd were destroyed. 1885, all Indian nations were now on reservations. And finally 1890, the Ghost Dance movement and massacre at Wounded Knee. The frontier was closed.